Now we're ready.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock, and I would like to call the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. Ask the clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Roach?
Yes.
Mr. Oh, you're here. Commissioner Haynes?
Here.
Commissioner Bauer?
Here.
Commissioner Hedden?
Here.
Mayor May?
Here we do have a quorum present, and we have a couple items on the agenda. Before we do that, I'd like to introduce Chris Gaines, who's a student from Frankfort High School, who's going to be shadowing me today, and he picked the day for the sewer budget. So he was real excited. He could pick that or the day we did all the special things with the police department. They're going to shoot weapons, and the fire trucks were going to spray all the water cannons and stuff. But he said, I'd rather do the sewer budget. So, just kidding.
Hey, what kind of guy?
So anyway, I'd like to introduce Chris and thank Chris for being with us and for Frankfort High School for doing such a great program. All right, let's see. First item on the agenda is citizen comments for agenda items only. Do we have any citizens here that wish to speak on any of the agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll go straight to item number 3.0, and this is to authorize a change order number 4 with Schroeder Construction for installation of gravity lines and force main for contract number 1 of the East Frankfort project for the sewer collection system, and authorize the mayor to sign all documents for the contract. As you all know, this project has been ongoing for 2-3 years, and in 2010 we had a contract with Schroeder for about approximately 3,000 feet of gravity sewer and approximately 14,000 feet of force main to serve the East Frankfort pump station. There were some problems with that, and we've got to issue this change order last week. City Manager Zissoff and our Director, Bill Scaff, and I met with representatives of Schroeder, who just requested to come in and discuss some concerns that they had with the project, and in order to give Schroeder the money that was due them for what work they have done so far, this change order would approve that. And if there's any questions, we have Mr. Scaff with us. If not, we would recommend approval.
I have one question. Okay, it appears that we've used up all the contingency remaining money, so if something else shows up, what do we do?
There will be one more change order. That'll be our balancing change order, but at this point, frankly, it will be a reduction in cost. The final, what you see there is the maximum amount of the contract that we could possibly extend based upon constructed quantities. There is still some adjustments and some negotiations that we're doing with Schroeder, but the balancing change order, frankly, will go down. Okay. But we just haven't finished all the negotiations to prepare that yet.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? We move. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
Bill, you know, when I look at this contract, which I may not be looking at right, it looked like it was supposed to be done in June 23rd, 2012.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, you know the obvious question. What happened? And you give me the short version.
There were some unanticipated things that went on. There were some rock issues. That's one of the things we are negotiating. There are liquidated damages associated with this, and that is part of the ongoing negotiations with Schroeder.
Is that in the contract when we signed?
Oh, absolutely.
Liquidated damages?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But that's why I'm saying the contract will actually go down due to the liquidated damages.
How much are the liquidated damages for each day they're late?
It's a calculation.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be roughly about $40,000 to $45,000.
So does this give you some pause in using them again, or is this just the nature of the beast? Or this looks to me like they're really late.
They're really late.
It's a lot of money.
Schroeder got excellent references. And I have to say, the quality of their work has been unbelievable. When we did our testing, they did not fail one stick of pipe. I mean, that's almost unheard of.
Yeah.
But their closeout of the project has been painful, to say the least. I believe this was too large a project for them. If I had a small project, I wouldn't hesitate to use them again. A large project like this, I would be a little concerned about using them.
Is there a sort of industry standard on liquidated damages, or if we use them again, could we increase that amount significantly so they would maybe be less likely to do that?
The problem with liquidated damages is you have to be real careful on how you define
Exactly.
what you're getting. Our liquidated damages typically is based upon what our additional cost is for that project during that additional time, which in this particular case, GRW is our engineer. As long as they're on the project, we're continuing to pay GRW. Back in December or January, I forget exactly, there was an amendment to GRW's contract for $40,000, and one of the items that was in that was that would be withheld from Schroeder as liquidated damages. So we're not out any more engineering fees. Schroeder is essentially paying those costs for us.
Well, last question. So it's not typical of industry to make this more punitive?
No. Liquidated damages are not punitive. Not supposed to be punitive. I mean, we had a project several years ago where the liquidated damages was about $83,000 a week or something. That's because the company that the project was supporting, that was their lost business if we didn't meet a certain date.
I understand that. That's why I was wondering if there's a way we could increase that and argue that it's a negative to the city, but it may not be that big of a deal for us.
Like I say, as long as we cover our engineer, I mean, I don't want projects to drag out any longer. We have to, obviously. But as long as we cover our engineering fees, I'm good with that.
And it's not impacting our
And it's not really
consent
no.
decree. Okay.
No.
Thanks.
City manager had a question.
Bill, I just wanted to point out as well, were you not running into some weather issues?
There were some weather
in
issues.
addition to-
Again, 2011 was the wettest year on record. That delayed things. That added time to the contract. I mean, there was a lot of extenuating circumstances.
So it would not be entirely the fault of the contract.
The entire thing. There were some things that were contractor driven, but not the entire delay. That's correct.
That's one. Hey, Bill, on that October 12th letter, wouldn't that be a red flag when they said there will be no warranty on the end of this result of this project? Would that be a red flag? Something they couldn't do. They sent a letter to, I guess, Jason Henry, GRW. Seemed like something was happening today. They highlight the green part. Anytime somebody says that there's not going to be a warranty, it sends up a red flag to me something's wrong. And it seems like that would let us know that we already passed that now. It's just
I'd have to look into that. I don't remember, because this was between Schroeder and our engineer. I don't know that I've ever seen this letter before.
okay.
Seriously.
All right, thank you very much.
But warranty, I mean, that was one of the conversations we had last week, dealt with warranty, and I don't anticipate there being an issue with them on warranty. I don't anticipate. But again, we always hold a bond.
Right.
If there is a warranty issue, we've always got the bond to fall back on.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. If there's a move to approve it, we'll entertain that.
We'll move to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Higgins,
Second.
second by Commissioner Haynes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call roll.
Commissioner Roach?
Yes.
Commissioner Haynes?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowers?
Yes.
Commissioner Hadden?
Yes.
Mayor May?
Yes, item 3.0 is approved. Next item, we have the retirement of the fire chief in the process of filling the position. As you previously know, the fire chief tendered his letter of intent to retire at the end of July of 2013. And take this opportunity again to thank Fire Chief Gossage for his years of service. I think, were you 15?
15 or 16.
15 or 16. So thank you for. I was trying to think. Are you at 15 years? I was thanking you for your service and said 15 or 16.
I'm sorry, I was distracted.
That's okay. That's all right. We're always.
15 years.
I was going to say 15 years. That's a good long tenure, and appreciate those years of service. And today, the city manager and others had some recommendations on the process that we could go through to find a replacement for the chief, or to fill a position, I should say. And we have this memo. And I think I'll just turn over to city manager so he can discuss his thoughts and recommendations on the promotional process or selection process, whatever the case may be.
The recommendation would be to post the position internally initially to see what type of candidate or the number of candidates that we do receive. An internal posting is consistent with our personnel policy. It does indicate that posting is a viable process. And assuming that we get a viable candidate, then we would go through a review process. I anticipate forming a committee of 1 or 2 commission members. Chief Will Hoyt, Randy Donahue, our HR director. I thought about having a subcommittee of a number of firefighters that would interview separately and provide an advisory recommendation, and then we would consider the internals. If that does not prove satisfactory to the commission, then we would look outside and advertise either in the Midwest or nationally.
It says on this memorandum that the posting will be conducted by Friday, April 26th. I didn't know if it's already been.
We held that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We held that, given the fact that we placed this on today's agenda.
Okay.
And it would be posted this Friday and rescheduled for about a 7 to 10 day period, is consistent with the person.
I read through it. I didn't see any problems with the way you had outlined it.
Okay. I would believe we would need then.
I make a motion that we accept the proposal from the city manager for the hiring process for the fire chief.
Second.
Move back to the next any discussion. I was going to say one thing. Their discussion. As a reminder, this is an actual appointed position to the city, so this is appointed by the Board of Commissioners. And so those are the new. And there's actually a process. I guess Rob's not here. Yes, but I think it's probably okay to have a member of the commission on. But if you set up a subcommittee, it will be subject to open records, open meetings laws. Any subcommittee of the board. So that's a consideration. Even you might want to check on that. Even if it's personnel, we've never done a subcommittee on that, so I would say make sure you review that section.
Just wondering why we would want that to be separate. Would it be, I know it would be different than what we've ever done before, but to have those people that we appoint that would be on a subcommittee to actually sit in our interviews. In other words, I would like to hear what that interview content is. It's just an idea. I mean, I'm okay with this, but we've never done it that way, and not that it's not a good way to do it. It might be, but I'm wondering if it might not be better to have those people actually sit in our interview so we can hear what takes place in that interview, and we would get different information and maybe more insightful information from actually hearing what takes place with that interaction. I don't know, it's just a thought. And I'm okay with this, but I'm throwing that out there to see what people think about that.
Well, I'll start thinking about it. I probably would be not as excited about having a commission member on there just for everyone's. I think maybe it would be better for the whole commission to hear that.
I do too.
But I'm always willing to try new things.
Well, I did not intend to preclude the full commission from interviewing the candidates. I thought the initial screening, if we get 2, 3, 4, 5 candidates from within our organization, I thought a screening period to make sure that these folks met the criteria of the job description. and then to the full commission for a formal consideration.
I don't have a strong preference either way, so whatever the group wants to do is fine with me. My slight preference would be to just interview the final candidate or two. In other words, if you go through it internally and you come up with one or two, then us to interview those rather than being involved in the process throughout. I'm hoping but that may be because I'm lazy. But
No, you're right.
I'd rather do that, but I don't have a strong preference. If we want to be involved throughout, I'm fine with that, but I think that might become more burdensome further on if we do that with a lot of other positions, but I guess there's not that many of this level,
No.
so whatever everybody wants to do, I'm fine with.
So, Mr. Zishoff, you were like perceiving this subcommittee or this committee of firemen is actually just going through to see if they actually meet the criteria. Not so much an interview, but screening the criteria. Is that what you?
Clarification: the committee of the firemen, firewomen, if that's appropriate,
Fire people.
would be,
Right.
or they would have an opportunity to interview the candidates on their own, separate from, and then they would provide a recommendation to myself and or the commission of their preference. So, and that would just be an advisory role on their part. So I did not envision them as part of the full group. And actually, the way I've spelled it out in the memorandum.
Involved with it, yeah. That's fine.
So.
That covers all that. I guess.
Staff can certainly screen the number that we receive and then present those as a final to the whole commission. If you're more, and that's actually how I've got it spelled out in this memorandum to you.
I'm fine with that.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Do we need to talk about that, the Chapter 40 provision that the top 2 ranks are open for promotion?
That is part of the criteria.
I didn't know that was in the memo, so.
It's not.
Why don't you talk about that so everybody understands?
Randy, do you want to go through that?
I can. The City Ordinance 4024, which is the civil service and let me find it before I start trying to.
I do have it here, Randy, if you don't.
No, you don't. I'll take too much room.
Basically, I'll just paraphrase it. You correct me if I'm wrong.
I got it right here if you want to read from it.
The civil service ordinance says that filling of the fire chief would come from the top 2 ranks within our fire department, which would be assistant chief and battalion chief, or a similar level if we went outside. And the position of fire chief may be filled by appointment promotion of a member of the fire department holding one of the next 2 lower ranks, assistant chief or battalion chief, or by the appointment of a qualified applicant of similar rank who's not a member of the Frankfort Fire Department. So I believe that the labor pool is probably 4, the assistant chief and 3 battalion chiefs. Or going outside and finding someone of that level from the outside. And I believe the intent there was probably to, a battalion chief is responsible for an entire crew for a day, to at least to limit the labor pool to people that have that level of management experience. Before they would take on an entire department, that they would at least have the management experience of being responsible for the fire department for a full day shift or crew.
Go ahead, Commissioner. I'm going to grab the statute for just 1 second while you.
I'm fine with making it narrow, but it sounds like what you read, though,
Oh,
it
not the
doesn't say
statute,
that.
sorry.
It says may. Doesn't the first sentence say may? And in other words, you could appoint, just as a joke, you could appoint somebody that's got no experience. But knows nothing about it. I'm not saying we're doing that, but doesn't the language say may?
It does say may.
I thought so.
Open to interpretation.
So I believe that they put may because to give the commission the latitude, but obviously the intent is to in other words, if there's somebody just super wonderful outside of that pool of four that everybody thinks is great, that would give you that opportunity.
Well, I guess the question then becomes, do we want to post it for beyond that? I mean, I would rather have the clearest
I don't.
direction
I'm
we
just
can.
saying the language didn't support that.
My suggestion would be, and we can take care of that at the staff level, but we can just post it per the language, and anybody, I mean, even though we have certain criteria, it doesn't prohibit anybody from applying for the position, and we still would provide the screening process and present those to the commission.
Proceed.
If I may, just making sure with this language that with the committee of the fire department advisory recommendation, just to make sure, I would like to see more than 2 or 3 on that.
Certainly. Would 5 work?
5 to 8 is what I would like to see. I think the more the merrier. The more eyes and ears are always nice. We did the same with you.
Will do. No.
And
See, bad choice.
yeah, see what a horrible choice. Gosh. And then there's always advantages for hiring internally, but there's always disadvantages for hiring internally as well, which those aren't listed, which is fine. There's advantages and disadvantages to either way we look at it. Which of course Chief Postage came from external, so I'm fine with following through this process and seeing where we might lead in hopes that we all come together on the same platform and hopefully have the same candidate all in mind.
And just so you all will know, if you want to use it as reference point, 83A.080, 83A.080 is the statute that deals with non-elected city officers, and that would be the appointment. That includes the appointment of the city clerk, city manager, city administrator, chief of police, and fire chief. So those are appointed by the board, and so it would emphasize, even though we're having a subcommittee of folks from the ranks, and they maybe all could be 100% agreement, doesn't mean the Board of Commissioners will follow that recommendation. I mean, I
Right.
can't imagine that there'd be that much conflict, but just so there's no false interpretation of that where the staff or employees think, well, we're going to all get together and approve or support this one person. Doesn't mean that the Board of Commissioners is going to do that. It's just an input and guidance. And I know that we all respect the input of our staff, and I think commend Tim and the others and Randy and Chief Postage and all for working on that to make a recommendation. But those are the references. And do you all have any other questions? If not,
I agree with Commissioner Hedden on the increase of number, but I think we should keep it to an odd number, so 5 or 7, just so you don't have ties in there. And I did have a question on your note, and I don't know if you want to share that, but in your manager's note, have yet to witness one that does not create controversy. And you do is that just the nature of the competitiveness of that small number?
It is the nature. I'm sure Chief Passage and I'm sure Chief Wilhoit would let you know that when there are promotions within the department, there tends to be controversy or concern that one person was chosen over another. And
Okay.
I've not witnessed a process yet that does not create some issues.
I just want to make sure I didn't misread it.
No, sir. It's the nature.
You got it.
Which is maybe one of the reasons why that committee could actually create more controversy than not having a committee within the department. I mean, and government is controversial, so if you think you're going to avoid controversy, you're in the wrong business. But I see that as actually contributing to the controversy. So we've never done that before. But if that's what this commission wants to do, I'm willing to try it, but I'm just not sure it's the best way to go. But that's what people want to do.
My own perspective.
Go ahead.
No,
I like the input from the department. I just appreciate appreciate, sometimes it's followed, sometimes it's not, but at least they've had an opportunity to be part of the process. That's, I think, the value.
I'm okay with trying something new. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if it does work, it'll be really, really good.
We'll do different next time.
So does anyone else have any thoughts? Okay. Please call the roll.
Mr. Roach?
Yes.
Commissioner Haynes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowers?
Yes.
Mr. Hedden?
Yes.
Mayor May?
Yes. Okay. Silly obviously passes. All right, next item we have sewer budget proposal
Your
from Mr. Staff. All right, so I'm not sure how much detail everybody wants to go into, but
Start with questions.
we can hear a line-by-line explanation, or you can just, the staff likes the line-by-line, I'm just kidding. Mainly,
We're flexible.
has everybody had a chance to,
Does everybody have their copy, I assume? Because I've got extras if somebody needs one.
if not, why don't, I was gonna say, why don't we just go to the bottom line first, and you can see what the totals are, and then you've got the different breakdowns of the various sub-funds in sewer. So does anyone have any specific questions at this time? Commissioner Roach?
I got a bunch of questions, but I don't know when you want me to ask them. I mean, it's not necessarily about that page. It's just a.
Oh no, it's just, I think that you're ready to
I say just fire them
open
up.
up.
I'm ready to go I'm ready to go wherever somebody wants to go.
Mayor, I think it may basically, if we do is any question on the sewer part, they did a good job of breaking this thing down, and I think if we march through it, because that's just I wouldn't want to see us jumping all around. So we can just walk through, because we got sewer, O&M. If there's any question on that first part,
Let's do page to page.
That works for me. You want to start with the recap, or do you want to jump straight to the 200 account?
I'm fine unless you all have, and especially for those that have not gone through this process before, they're probably going to have more questions.
I'm sure that's true.
We can always come back to the recap if we need to. If that's good with you all, we'll just go straight to 200.
Okay.
Page 1 is obviously a summary page of all the different areas. The only real red flag that you'll notice there is benefits. My estimate for this year is significantly higher than my budget for benefits, and that's primarily due to medical. But everything else, we're in fairly decent shape, and what my intent is to hit the highlights, but obviously I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding any of these items. Page 2 is personnel and overtime. I don't have any specific things to address, but if there's questions, be glad to take them.
And I guess let me just say on the first part that I am brand new at this, so there's a lot of background knowledge that I don't have. So I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure some of them are very good, but just bear with me. And then I also come from a different perspective on budgeting, from the private sector as opposed to public sectors. There's a difference. I'd like to see the
Big
public
difference.
sector get a little more like the private sector, but I realize that that's a different, somewhat of a different animal. We don't have the inelasticity of revenue that the public sector has. So, having said that, on personnel, is there any way? And this, I just sort of have 3 questions along those lines. Has any thought been given to seeing if we could manage with fewer employees? Have we looked at having any part-time employees? And have we looked any further at contracting out, which I know you have from looking at the budget? I guess bottom line is how hard did we look to see if we can manage with lower personnel costs than what we have?
Currently, I am down 3 employees.
So you have 46?
Today I have 44.
You got a budget for 46.
This is 46, so I'm down to 43 right now.
Okay.
I've got 2 field people that have not been filled yet that were vacated earlier this year. The city manager and I have had some discussions about that. I'm perfectly good with not filling those positions, but recognizing that if we do that, there will be a higher contracting cost because those are positions that are out in the field that do the system management that keeps me straight with the state when it comes to my CMOP program, Capacity Management, Operation, and Maintenance. There's certain commitments by the consent judgment and our CMOP document that we have to do on an annual basis. And whether I do that with people on staff or whether I do that contractually,
I guess the
makes no
question.
difference to me.
Yeah, the question, because in the personnel numbers that you got, historical numbers, I guess 2000, there was 46 budgeted. So if you're down to 43, those cost savings, how much is it going to cost to contract that out? Is it going to be cheaper? If it is, then I think that's a good idea.
With if you look at the total cost, I think long term, I think it is cheaper. If you look at it on a 1 year basis, I don't know that it is cheaper, and that's just because a perfect example is we can go out and we can contract sewer cleaning. Well, for what I pay a contractor to come in and clean, if I did that 365, well, actually not 365, but 250 days or whatever work days are, that's going to cost me more than the 2 people. But in reality, I know I'm not going to contract with that individual or that company 250 days a year. In reality, it's probably going to be more like 150 to 200 days a year, which does then make it a lot more cost competitive to hiring people, plus the fact of the equipment involved and everything else.
Okay, so you think more than likely not hiring those 3 people, going with 43 in the long run will
I'm
save
talking
us
about
money.
2 of those people
Okay.
right now.
So, all right.
I still got a third one I need to discuss.
Okay.
But the 2 field people are the ones
Gotcha.
that
Well, you know, I'm always trying to
I
jump
know.
one more there.
I know.
So,
but yeah, I think it is doable. But like I say, I just have to recognize that will drive up my contracting costs.
Any other commissioners have questions on 200?
On that third individual is my deputy director of operations.
I knew where we were going.
That's under discussion.
Which is still a position, frankly, that I believe I do need just to keep some continuity and some management at the appropriate levels within the department.
That was another personnel question that I had is it, I believe you're highly competent. I'm not just telling you that, I believe that. What do we do if you have a heart attack tomorrow?
You're in trouble.
That's what I mean. That's why I'm asking the
Seriously,
question.
you're in trouble. On the collection side, Bob Peterson could pick up and run well, but you have nobody on the
That's
regulatory
what I was
side.
afraid of. That's why I asked.
I'm just being straight up. Yes.
That's why I asked it.
Take care of yourself.
Bob, I love Bob. He's a great employee, but he is not a regulatory type person.
Do you have anybody that you're mentoring or working with?
Today, no.
Okay.
Don't have anybody.
So is that what you would envision, this position that you're wanting?
Absolutely. I mean, some of the things
That's
we're
what I'm
dealing with
going
right
to.
now with the lab certification program and stuff like that, frankly, I'm spending way too much time on and not spending time on stuff like this that I should. And that's what I need is somebody to mentor so that, I've got, I feel comfortable that all aspects of the department are covered. If I get hit by a bus going home tonight.
Don't even say that here.
Fine.
I don't intend to do that.
So we don't want to get the bus driver. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say too, this is one of the things that I was telling Tim, one of the examples when I was talking about cross-training in our planning sessions that is very important to get done as soon as we can. So, it's about.
Oh, I got another personnel one.
Why don't we just let each commission go ahead and just do your line of questioning, and then we'll just take turns.
I feel just stay with the person. Is there on this part-time aspect of part-time employees, it may not be possible given the nature of yours, but what about, don't you all have, maybe there isn't a downtime, but isn't there a downtime for some of your field people?
No.
And
We have no downtime.
it's not in the winter?
No. We're as busy in the winter as we are in the summer. We're just doing different things. I mean, sewers are flowing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we have issues 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if there's a break, I don't know if the city manager can attest to this. I know the previous city manager could, and I know the mayor can. If there's a break in a force main or a major line, it's always at 3 o'clock on a Friday. Always.
I can definitely attest to that.
I mean, we have people out on Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Easter. I mean, I've got staff. I mean, the plant's staff's 24/7. I got somebody at the plant 24/7.
Well, I understand that. I thought people out, when you're out doing repairs and things of that nature, that you wouldn't have as many in the winter as you would.
We're doing as many repairs, as much maintenance in the winter as we are in the summer.
Anybody else have some questions they would like to ask? I would say just on that line that we have usually at night or after hours we usually have 2 people. We have at least one person on call.
We always have, well, we have one person at the plant, and then I've always got 2 people on call, one for the collection side and one for the pump side.
So I just wanted to say, like, there's the two people that typically would go out on call, and this kind of made me think about when Commissioner Roach asked those questions, just more procedural things.
Right.
And at some point, I think it would be great to do the tour with everybody.
I'd be happy to give a tour to anybody anytime. As some of you know, I love to talk about sewers.
It's always fun.
If you like science, you'll love this. And biology and chemistry, a little bit of chemistry, not enough. But
it's basic chemistry. Sewers are my bread and butter.
Next question. Yes. Bill, I can't recall. Did we ever get the health and safety superintendent in your department?
Nope.
That you'd asked for?
Nope. And again, that's one of the things with the deputy director of operations. That's one of the things that I could assign that individual to do. I frankly don't think it's a long-term solution, but I think it's a very viable short-term solution.
And with that deputy director, that's the one you're talking about, kind of as your protege, the one that you want to mentor.
From a regulatory side, yes.
And would that job salary classification be the same as it would been as you asked previously with the health and safety superintendent?
No, the deputy director of operations is
the
higher.
salary?
It's a 95, I believe. I have to go back and look, but I believe it's a 95.
Okay.
19 or 95.
Bill, can I ask one question?
No.
We've been operating, how long have we been operating 43? We're down 3 right now.
Well, I lost 2 people in February this year.
Have we been able to absorb that with the current staffing level without increasing so far, without increasing our professional fees or our,
Oh, right now I'm doing it with overtime. I mean, my overtime last month was $14,000.
Is that on average every month?
My average usually runs around 9 or 10.
So we'll just say average 10.
We had 150,000 budgeted.
Right.
that puts you a little bit over?
Some years I do much better than that, and there's been a few years that I've blown my overtime budget pretty bad.
Yeah.
Commissioner, you want to continue?
No, that was my only question regarding this right now.
Yeah, I had two people leave the department in February, end of February.
That was a great opinion.
Any other commissioners have any questions on 200 account?
Oh, okay, so we can do pages 4 and 5 of this also?
If you want to.
Okay.
Page 3 is benefits. Again, the only major thing I want to point out is that you'll notice my budget was 300. My actual costs we're projecting about 420, and then 350 next year. One of my employees that left in February left for medical reasons, which is why my medical is so high this year. Obviously, we do not anticipate with him being gone that being as significant an issue in the future, but he had some serious medical issues that, like I say, took him to an early retirement.
So, you budgeted 300 in 12-13, and then you've gone with 350 for 13-14. And I was just wondering, do you think we can do it cheaper? Only reason why I say that is because given the trend of our insurance, which seems to have gone down a little bit, and if you don't have that one person, I was wondering if you have 2 fewer employees, I was wondering if we thought we could get our costs lower than that.
We can, but you know, I'm good with that, changing it.
I'm just
but
asking
I don't know
you
what
all.
those answers are.
Well, I don't either.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to
exactly.
say, from a budgeting standpoint, that looks to me like too excessive of an increase based on the facts we know.
The two, and again, I don't know specifics. You know, due to all the medical issues, I don't know specifics. But I do know that basically I had 2 claims that drove this up. One was the employee that's gone. The other, as I understand it, was a dependent of one of my current employees. I do not know what the status of that is. I can't sit here and say that issue's gone away. I just don't know.
So there's 2, there's not just one.
It's not just one, correct.
Yes.
If I may, when you budget for medical, it is a specific line item, and if we have it budgeted and we don't spend it, those funds will simply roll from one year to the next and be part of our beginning cash balance. From my perspective,
That makes sense to me.
it's better to budget for and perhaps not have to spend it than to be surprised at the end of the fiscal year like we were this year.
Yeah, and that makes sense in this area. In a lot of areas, that doesn't make sense
Right.
because then you just spend it.
Yeah.
In medical,
Oh,
there's
I
no
agree.
choice.
The cost is
Thank
what the
you.
cost is. And actually, we started when Steve put this together. I think you had 400 or 450.
Yeah,
and after some discussions, we went ahead and moved it down to where it is, based upon the best knowledge we've got.
May I? Just with some of this, I didn't know how many of your employees were taking part so far with the Humane and Vitality. I guess that's the main program, and if there's anything going out toward ergonomic training and or back safety training, making sure that our employees are learning at least how to be preventative with injuries.
On Vitality, I believe, and Randy's not here, so I'm going to speak for him, but I believe we are right on with the rest of the city. We're right at about 50%. I couldn't tell you the exact number, but the last time I talked to Randy, we were about where, percentage-wise, where the rest of the city was. Regarding additional training, we do have a health and safety training program. We have a contractor that comes in on a monthly basis. We have 11 programs that we offer each month, and then the 12th month is kind of a catch-up if something happens and we have to delay one. Obviously, we do all the typical trenching and shoring, confined space. We do lifting. We do just general. We do bloodborne pathogens, CPR, and so yeah, we have I believe a fairly decent safety program. I don't think it's as good as it needs to be, but it's better than it was when I got here. I can assure you of that.
And it's probably a lot better than nothing.
Yes, absolutely, a lot better than nothing. Which is
So
kind of
that's-
where we were when I got here.
Which is at least once a month, you said?
Once a month, we have somebody come in and do training for us.
And all employees are involved with that?
All employees have the opportunity to come to any. We encourage all employees to come to all, but sometimes and the way we do this, a lot of times we'll do split sessions. We'll do a morning and an afternoon. Because I can't take everyone on my collection crew and throw them. Number one, I don't have a place big enough, but I can't, pull everybody off the street. So most of our training sessions have at least 2, sometimes 3 sessions, so that we can split the employees up. But if we're doing trenching and shoring, the folks in my lab probably don't go.
Right.
They're welcome to if they want, but they probably don't. Lockout, tag out, obviously all my mechanical folks, my electricians, all of them go to that. The collection crew may or may not, although some of them should, because there is lockout, tag out procedures for our vac truck and some of our big heavy equipment. And we track that, by the way. And that's part of the evaluation process when we do evaluations annually.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Do you have anything else on O&M?
Steve's got one more.
Can I say one thing on personnel cost? There is a COLA in there, in that number. There's a
what?
A COLA, cost of living for the employees. There's a 1.5 effective in July, and there's a 1% effective in December. So that I reckon the impact would be about 2% for this fiscal year. It's approximately $350,000 impact for the wages.
Total organization.
350 for
That's
total?
not just me.
Yeah.
350 is not
Yeah.
just me.
That would be
For the
Yeah.
entire...
Right. Yeah. Well,
Where those numbers match up.
on the side of the general, it's about $400,000.
And that's in line with the general fund proposal,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, right.
Obviously, whatever decided on general fund, we will do the same thing, obviously. But I think that's the proposal that would be presented with the general fund budget.
In this fund?
Yes.
You say this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's about $40,000 impact on Bill's budget.
All right.
Any other benefits? Okay, page 4. The only two I want to point out is 53,240, which is heat, light, and power. Our costs this year have been significantly higher than anticipated. So obviously we're putting a little more money in next year's budget for that. We're doing as many cost saving issues as we can. So I can only assume that it would be worse if we weren't doing energy conservation projects. Of course, a lot of these energy conservation projects takes time for you to see the results because it takes a while to get them installed. The other item is maintenance and repair. Basically, that $100,000 is a transfer from another account on the next page, which I'll talk about. It doesn't really impact my budget negatively or positively. It's just reallocation of money. I'll take any questions.
Okay, Bill, I think you've already talked about the workers' comp. Now, the reason, is this the same as medical? If we don't use it, it'll go forward too?
Yes.
Okay.
That's our actual cost for any workers' comp issues, as I understand it.
We're not self-funded though, are we? We are on workers' comp.
Yeah.
There's a nice little success story that Randy will be getting out to the commission and hopefully maybe even the journal about how much we've saved through our self-funded program.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
It's significant.
And as you can see, our projections this year are significantly lower than they have been in the past couple of years. But we haven't changed the number again for the same rationale. One serious injury and this 40,000 ain't going to cut it.
Isn't there a cap on that?
I believe there
22,
is,
19,
but I don't know
21,000.
exactly what that is.
There's a cap. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Well, if we're on this page, page 4,
Yes, page 4.
who does the auditing and accounting?
The audit.
Same people does
Same
the
people
whole
who does
thing?
audit.
It's
And so we just allocate,
Joy.
just allocate 10 grand towards sewer.
Yes.
Got it. Bill, on this heat, light, and power.
Yes.
Remember, I don't know a lot about this stuff. Is the primary generator of coastal generation electricity?
Yes.
And how do we do our electricity? Are we using natural gas? Are we using just plant board? Or
Most of our electrical cost is the plant board. I've got 7 or 8 pump stations that are serviced by KU.
which is higher than the plant board?
Yes, actually, it's interesting. Yes, it's higher than the plant board.
10% higher than the plant board.
But the plant board buys their
Buys their
power
power.
from KU.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's because it's a semi-public utility, is
Yeah.
plant board, and they can do it cheaper.
But yes, I've got, like I say, 7 or 8 pump stations that we purchase directly from KU, but other than that, everything comes from the plant board. The one thing I will say is the plant board does not hit us with a multiplier for anything. They bill us at a straight, which
Good.
is
That's a lot
phenomenal.
of money.
Yeah, it saves us a ton of money. Because again, when we start up a 250 horse motor, the end draw on that is tremendous. But they just charge us a flat one multiplier.
Why did the insurance go up so much? If you'll notice the next 2 lines,
If you add the insurance, property insurance together,
yes, sir.
the numbers are about the same. It was a reallocation of the costs.
No, I meant from 2011 to 2012, we've gone from 137 to 205.
I'm not sure I know the answer to that.
And that's a substantial increase. So
Yes.
that's why I was wondering.
You've got all those projects. I know those projects
Well,
come into play where you've got to put.
We do have a lot of new infrastructure which we're
Infrastructure.
insuring. That could very well be
Yeah,
it.
that's probably driving a lot of.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that.
We'll put some information in the update for you, for clarification.
What's the education and outreach at 10? Looks like we spent 600 and asked for 15 grand.
What that is that's basically a requirement of our consent judgment. And very candidly,
It's like a waste of money.
we haven't ramped it up
You're the
as much as
educator.
we've committed to in our consent judgment. But there's certain things that we've committed to do for education and outreach to the public.
So we're going to do more this year.
We've got to do more.
So that's why we got more money there.
Yeah.
You have to.
What are we doing?
Right now, not much.
$600.
The big thing is, obviously, we started our rain barrel program.
Or what?
Our rain barrels. We have not done a real good job of getting that word out. But yeah, there's just a lot of things like that we really need to start doing. And I say, frankly, we just haven't.
Speaking of rain barrels, can we as a city start trying to use those as well so they're publicly seen? I mean, I don't know.
I got a bunch of them.
Do any of our buildings even use them? I mean, we have these rain. I mean, it would be a good image at least to say we have them, and
I mean, we bought
Maybe the
like 600.
beautification
at one
department
time
could use the
because it was
water
a
to
truckload
water the
of them.
plants.
Got a great deal.
Does our park department not use effluent
No,
to fill some of their?
no. I would love to get my effluent up to the golf course, but the cost to get it up there is just not. The numbers just don't work.
Run the water.
Yeah.
We've got the least energy efficient building in town.
Yeah.
Our building.
Good again. Costs the same.
Other questions on page 4?
What are the Remember, I don't know very much.
Go ahead.
What are the professional fees? 100,000?
Professional fees are basically engineering fees and other fees like that that are not specifically identified to a project. We have some continuing service contracts with some firms where we can just go and have them do small little things for us. If we need a survey done, if we need a quick and dirty design done for something that's not project related.
Other services.
Other services. The biggest item in there is what we pay the plant board to do our billing for us, which is almost $100,000 a year. Our Kentucky 811 fees come out of that. It's basically fees that don't have someplace else to go.
Okay.
On the phone,
Yes.
and I'll be quiet on this page. I'm struck a little bit by the fact that phone prices have gone down the last 4 or 5 years, yet ours has gone up a little bit. So I assume that's largely cell phones, or
A lot of it's cell phones.
so
Yes.
so are we? Do we have some? And I realize it sometimes costs more to have somebody do it than you actually save. But do we have somebody that's on top of that to drive that down? Because
At this point, no.
it doesn't make any sense that our costs have gone up on phones, to be honest, because
Right.
phone services have dropped dramatically. I wouldn't be surprised if you could find $10,000 or $15,000 there, but that's not a lot of money in this budget.
Right. But no, we do not have anybody that, I mean, we try to watch it, but do we watch it as well as we could or should? No.
And as Commissioner Hedden said, that could help fund that other position.
Yeah. 10 grand here, 10 grand there.
If y'all could, and I don't know who could do it, but if you all could get back to us and find out about that, and that may be part of I don't know what the phone bill is for the whole outfit here. That may be something that we could
Well, we just got that-
negotiate with the provider and
It just
lower our
went through.
costs.
One just went through, right, with Liberty.
We
just-
Yeah, we did the
Landlines.
landlines.
Yeah, those-
But
we haven't done anything on cells.
Well-
I'm told we have at least 2 different companies that seem to serve.
At least. Probably 3.
That's something that we
I bet there's some money there.
next several months.
Thanks.
Next page. We don't have a position key.
Page 5. The 2 items that I want to highlight in this one are about a third of the way down, the drugs and lab. That's basically my laboratory. You'll notice that's gone up 5,000, and that basically is being driven. And we think this is a best guess because we don't know, but it's being driven by the new state requirement for lab certification. Basically, effective July 1 of this year, which I think will drag out at least till December, all wastewater labs have to be certified. They currently do not have to be. And obviously there is a cost for that certification, which is why that number went up. The other one is shop supplies, which is third one from the bottom. You'll notice that one went from 250 down to 100. And again, 100 of that went on the previous page. It was basically a reallocation of where that money's going. And it's dropped $50,000. And I'll take any questions.
Commissioner Haynes.
Okay, let's go to the top of agriculture. Are we not doing anything? The reason we spent $2,500, but we're requesting $6,000.
That is, agriculture is where we purchase stuff like lime, grass seed, those type things when we do something that is, like lime is if we have bypasses, we clean it up and we lime it. The grass seed is basically, and mulch is when we do projects. What we're trying to do is as much as possible is allocate those costs to the project that they're associated with as opposed to this fund. So this fund is basically picking up all those costs that we can't figure out where else to put them. So hopefully we'll see a slow decline. I thought about taking it down a little more, but I'm just a little reluctant to do that yet.
It's about the same as clothing. We estimate about $20,000, but we're requesting $30,000. It's 10 grand now. Looking over the history of it, it doesn't look like it supports that.
And that was one we looked at real hard, and I don't have a problem reducing it, but again, you know, we provide uniforms and laundry services for all of our employees. We reimburse our employees up to $100 a year for steel-toed boots. So there's a lot of clothing issues and stuff in there that we provide.
And I'll leave your lubricants alone because I know you have to lubricate a lot.
We use a lot of lubrication.
But it just seemed like it was probably could have been $10,000 based on the history that was given here. The actual, you know, the whole line.
60 grand for a job.
The problem that we have is
You want that deputy?
pardon?
Do you want that deputy? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're 60 grand.
He's not going to squeeze it.
We probably should be doing more than we are, quite candidly, and I'm hoping we can get to where we need to be. This is where we should be, I believe. But yes, we go through a lot of lubrication. We got a lot of moving parts.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on 305 to 387? Just so you all know, that was a good point. When Bill brought that up about agriculture has to, there are departmental needs that may not always fit in the way we do our budget. As you go through the budget process, you'll see like the O&M department is 200, and then .68 is a special division for them. But 54305, you'll see that account in every department. All those numbers are going to be the same across the board, so that the finance folks and budget folks can put everything in the same category. So we'll know anything with automotive is going to be 54315 in any department, and those first three numbers would be whatever that division is. So that's kind of way you can tell. So if you wanted to see everything in 54315 across the board, you can ask the finance folks, and they can give you that by line item for the whole sewer budget and also the whole general fund budget. If you have any of those kind of questions, if you really want to get in and really break it down, you can look all the way across, and it'll be the same account number for everything. And sometimes departments have, for example, and there's nobody else that uses the same stuff that the sewer department uses, for example. So in order to try to find a place to put that, it's more difficult to go back and try to create one subcategory just for them, and then nobody else would use it. So there's a lot of little things that will, like why are we using agricultural in police department?
Right.
But they have to have those just for continuity and comparison if you look at the whole budget.
Makes sense.
So there will be some times when he'll say, yeah, we don't have any place else to put it because there is no category. So they have to figure out what's the most...
Best fit.
Yeah. And then... Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Any other fives? Page 6. You will see a slight increase here, and some of that is due to the fact of our two different issues. One is the lab certification, and there is obviously training associated with that. Additional training that we're not currently doing that we will have to. The other is 2 years ago the state had implemented a certification program for the collection crew, and we're trying to ramp that program up. Right now I've only got 2 people that are actually certified, and I mean ultimately I'd like to get every person in my department certified, but I don't know if that's a true viable option or not. But each year we're trying to ramp that up a little bit more to get additional people certified.
I don't have a question about that page. You're presenting somewhere. Is that in this year's budget or next year's?
When I do presentation, well, the one I did a couple months ago, or last month I guess it was in this year's budget, current year's budget. Now I'm doing one in July at the Water Professionals Conference, And of course, the cost of that conference is included in this budget here.
Association dues,
Yes.
that's gone up a whole lot the last 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
Why is that?
We're trying to get our folks involved in more associations where they can be better educated to learn what's going on in the industry. All right.
All right, 300.
300 account. Page 1.
That's page 1.
The yellow column is basically our current year's budget. The rows, or whatever you want to call it, is our estimate of what we're going to spend in our current year's budget. The blue is the budget that we're talking about here, the 13-14. And then the green is what we anticipate for next year. And then obviously there's a years 2, 3, 4, and 5 out there with a 5-year total. One of the, well, I'll worry about that later. The 3 things that we're looking to do. You'll also notice in the vehicles there are some red vehicles. Those are vehicles that we are going to surplus. We have coordinated that with Mike Chapman over at the garage, and he's in concurrence with all the recommendations that are in here. And our decisions to surplus are based on basically the cost to keep that vehicle in service. But we're proposing to purchase, just 3 vehicles next year. Basically, a 3/4 ton pickup to replace 90C, a half ton or 2 half-ton pickups to replace 913 and 914.
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple, straightforward. You will notice there are quite a few vehicles in year 2. We have a replacement program, and what happens is when they get to year 2, we don't automatically move them to year 1. So there's actually vehicles in here that should have been replaced in past years, but they still work. They're not a burden. So, but we know that any year they could go south on us and we'd have to replace them.
But none of those are major things like...
No, they're pickups, utility trucks, that type of stuff. The only major is is our big back trucks and those, and there is. Let's see, where is it? On second page, there are large crane truck. We are looking to replace that next year, not this budget year, but next year. Unfortunately, that's one of those trucks that probably doesn't have 15,000 miles on it. But when you need it, you need it. And it's used a lot in support of public works with floodgates, other stuff. I mean, other departments use that besides us. It's got a lot of use. The biggest problem is we get larger and larger pumps. Frankly, it's to the point where we're pushing its capacity when we do projects anymore. But we'll talk about that more next year.
And that's just used to like weight limitations.
Yes.
Primarily.
Yeah. It's undersized. It was great when we bought it, but compared to what we do now, it's undersized. It would not pull a flood pump. We could not use that to pull a flood pump today. We had to.
But it will lay the flood wall.
It will do the walls. Yes, we do. They do the walls all the time with that truck. Well, I say it doesn't have a lot of mileage, but it gets a lot of use. On the equipment, a couple of items, some safety equipment. We always like to throw a little money in there for miscellaneous safety equipment, which is different from the 200 account, which is safety supplies. Safety supplies are things like gloves and other disposables. Safety equipment or harnesses, SCBA, and those type of items. We don't have anything specifically identified. It's just there as we identify stuff. You'll notice a little further down there's an oven dryer and a refrigerator for the lab. That is directly driven by the certification program. Our refrigerator does not meet the needs of whatever the certifying agency is, and you can see it's not a Lowe's or a Sears refrigerator. It's a little higher quality than that. Well, it's actually more of the not the temperature, but of the control of the temperature. And then a drying oven, again, it's old. It does not meet the calibration requirements, so we've got $6,000 for replacing those two items in next year's budget. And then on page 3, one of our old mowers from '94 just needs to be replaced. Again, that's basically the mowers we use around the plant to keep the plant in check. Questions on equipment? Okay.
The other department mowers that could be used.
Other department.
Yeah, could
Parks has a bunch, but I don't.
yeah, you can ask it.
Well,
It's the same idea.
Yes.
We use Public Works to do all of our pump stations now. And I'm not saying they couldn't do the plant. The problem with the plant is there are a lot of things in the way, valves and stuff like that, that if they got used to it, they could probably do it. But if somebody that doesn't know what they're doing went in there, we could tear up a lot of equipment real quick. Our guys know where all those things are, and well, most of them do. We had one of them a few years ago that tore up one of our mowers, but he's no longer with us. But anyway, but yeah, and you know, I'm not adverse to that necessarily. But it's just a coordination issue, and you know, if that's the route the commission wants to go, I'm good with that.
And, well, this is one that stays on site.
Yeah, we've got 3 mowers on site that mow. Now, I will say we don't mow as much as we do because, you know, we recently sold that property to the River Authority, and although we still use all 3 mowers. One's a large mower for the big areas, and then 2 smaller 0 turns to do around the plant and the clarifiers and all the equipment and stuff. But we used to mow all the other front stuff where the River Authority now owns and all that. We don't mow that anymore.
Sounds like a farm.
Yeah. All that back, 15 acres or something that we own, all that gets mowed regularly. So we've got like 50, 60 acres down there that, of course, it's not all grass.
Taking care of a farm, basically.
Yeah. But like I say, you know, if that's something the commission would like us to look into, I'm good with that.
I think the critical question becomes whether or not it can be done at a lower cost that way. In other words, if you can get rid of staff or use staff more productively not doing that, and if Public Works doesn't have to hire more people, etc., it could be an idea that costs more money than what we currently have, or it could save more money. I would think that would be the key thing to look at.
From my standpoint, my only cost for this is obviously the cost of maintaining the mowers and buying the mowers when they need replacement. My operators do the mowing, and basically they mow either first or second shift because it's light. Third shift can't mow.
And it's going to be cheaper if you still got to keep it.
Yeah, it doesn't get rid of any of my staff.
And what you'd have to do is you'd have to allocate a Public Works staff person.
There would have exactly.
That's why I'm saying this one's on site.
It's on site. It's there. You would have to bring it in by truck every time you wanted to cut.
And then we'd allocate staff time, and it's.
Yeah, I think it's cheaper the way they got it.
Probably enjoy it.
I think so.
Okay, I'm good with that too. Some of these I'm very flexible on. Actually, I'd love to get out of the mowing business, but it just, and like I say, the Public Works does do the mowing of our pump stations for us. For that reason, you know, I'm not using my trained folks just to cut grass. You know, my operators are already on site, so it's not that big a deal for them to mow.
How long does it usually take to do a full mowing, generally?
Usually 2 to 3 days.
Because
they don't get on there and mow because they still got rounds to do and everything else. So on a good, if nothing else is going on, probably 2 days because of the other duties that they have to take care of. Because you got to remember, these are the same guys that are operating the plant, that are doing the lubing, that are repairing stuff if it goes down, and it just all has to get coordinated and done.
And I just used that as an example.
Yeah.
They're there.
They're there.
And they don't have to watch the gauges.
No, we've got
second of the
alarms.
day,
If they're
so
out mowing, the alarm goes off, they stop the mower and go deal with the alarm.
I don't want to take away from your tour, but I just explaining that just so everyone would know that. It's easy to understand when we understand those that have done it understand the process and can see it, but if people haven't,
But no, I cannot reduce staff by eliminating the mowing. Computer equipment, there's no change there, but basically we have money in there for ongoing GIS issues, annual maintenance fees. Again, we pay, I think it's $15,000 of the Esri, which is the GIS software. We pay $15,000 of that every year. It's a I think it's a $35,000 fee. You know, Charlene, I think it's 35. We pay 15 of that. And then obviously hardware and software are just ongoing things that we purchase, and then document scanning is something we've trying to get rolling this year. Frankly, we really haven't done as well this year as we would like, but it is something we need to do. We've got a lot of documents, and getting them scanned electronically so we have better access is going to make our life a whole lot simpler. And we've had some discussions with the city clerk and some other folks, because if we do it, we need to do something that's compatible citywide. So, which is part of the reasons why it's been a little slow coming.
Commissioner Haynes has a question.
Yes, the odor controls. What caused it to jump $80,000?
Blanton
Hills,
Acres.
no, I don't know.
You're stinky, huh?
Well, you know, we don't deal with the best smelling stuff in the world.
We have some areas in town that really have a problem. You know, in the campaign, Blanton Acres, they were complaining about it, and as I walked, I'm like, how do these people put up this odor? So
We've got, and we're addressing that problem. That should be fixed probably this week or next week.
good.
We think. We'll have to wait till the middle of summer to find out. But, you know, our odor control, part of it is just chemical costs. Chemical costs the last few years have gone through the roof. Part of it is we're doing more treatment than we used to, trying to keep those costs or keep those odors down. Which obviously the cost of the chemical goes up, the amount you use goes up, your total cost goes up for chemicals.
Piggybacking on that, though, what have been you're right, chemicals and other commodities have escalated a lot the last 2 or 3 years. They've also started to go down dramatically the last couple of months. It probably hadn't gotten to our purchase price yet.
We haven't seen
But
that
I
yet.
think there is I hope a chance that usually happens. It just takes
Good.
a while in the cycle.
We would love to see it.
But you really, besides the increase in commodity costs, you really don't know why it goes from 180 to 250. Because that's a big, like Commissioner Haynes, I see that's a big bump.
We're treating more locations than we used to, trying to address some of these spot issues. What we did last year is we actually put out a contract. We no longer do odor control on the west side of Frankfort. The cost that's in here for that is we subcontract with somebody to do that for us. And what that means is if we get a odor call in the west side of Frankfort, it goes straight to that company. Their people respond, and it's their responsibility to keep chemicals and to keep the odor in check.
Are they cheaper than we are?
Yes.
Can they do the whole town?
Yeah, that's our ultimate goal. We wanted to start with one side of town first.
How long have they had it?
1 year.
Okay. What's the company?
It's a company called Source Technologies. We put it out to bid. We actually had two companies, Source Technology and it used to be Siemens. Who bought Siemens? I forget the other company, but it was competitively bid. Basically, it's a performance spec, and our complaints in West Frankfort this past summer were almost non-existent. East side, I can't say that, but the west side, we're all. So that's one of the things we're looking at, is to take that program, and I'd really like to get one more year under my belt to make sure that we're really good with it.
So then that would change your 5-year trend on that line outward.
Hopefully it would flatten it, if not cause it to go down.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, it wouldn't.
Wouldn't that increase if we're going to start contracting more? Wouldn't it
You
increase?
just said it was cheaper to contract it than for us to do it ourselves.
Well, right now, all of the cost of the chemicals that we're doing is also in here, and again, that would all be rolled over to the responsibility of the contracting party, whoever's doing that. But like I say, we're still trying to assimilate all that data to make sure it is more cost effective for us to contract it.
Well, I guess my point would be, I should have said it, my point would be that if you're going to contract that out, then you're not going to need the same number of staff. If you have the same staff and then spend that for contracting, you've not done yourself any good.
Well, the savings, the number of staff probably will not change.
But you'd save all the other stuff.
You save on overtime and you save on chemical costs.
Well, I guess my only thing would be, and you're exactly right, Bill, I would hope, and I think we would, I would hope that we did a careful cost-benefit analysis so that, we determined that it was lower cost.
Right.
And I think that it would be, but you'd have to make sure you added all those things in.
Right.
Otherwise, you continue with the same cost load. Now you spent more money than you were before.
Right. But like I say, what we found on the west side is we do not send anybody out on order calls anymore on overtime. So right there, you're saving a significant amount of money on overtime. Plus the fact our number of trouble calls has been non-existent. And frankly, I'm almost willing to pay a small premium just not to get the calls all the time. But like I say, we do save a tremendous amount of overtime, and we're still paying for the chemicals whichever way you go. The advantage of a company like this is, frankly, they can buy the chemicals because they're buying bulk. They can buy the chemicals cheaper than we can because of the quantities. I think that's where your big cost savings is. All these are just different chemicals we use throughout the system. They go up, they go down, depending upon what the market is. Biosolids, you'll notice that took a pretty hefty leap. Our biosolids generation has gone up significantly. We're still trying to get to the bottom of that. We haven't quite figured out why yet.
That seems odd.
I know.
Because
I
people
don't.
will be
We thought it was a fluke with the real wet year in 11 that maybe we got a lot of flushing, but 12 has not been any better. So I don't know what the problem is.
So these are the haulers. I mean, we're still hauling that.
Right now it's Hall & Associates. That contract expires in September. Probably in June we'll be putting out a bid package to re-advertise that. They're at the end of a 5-year contract. So we contract that every 5 years. The last 5 years we've done land farm distribution. The 5 years prior to that we landfilled. Again, we're price driven. Whoever can do the cheapest for us is who we go with. Last item on page 3 is emergency repairs. And again, this is for the collection system. And those are just things that are emergencies that are not programmed. And unfortunately, we have more than our fair share of them. Page 4, we've got emergency repairs for the pump stations and emergency repairs for the wastewater treatment plant. And again, those are just unplanned, major. The one we had last month, which was Capitol Avenue. All those type things come out of this line item. Now we get into projects. One of the things, and I'm not going to go through this line by line, but I'll hit the major ones and answer any questions. one of the things that that Mr. Dawson and I have had numerous discussions about, when we look at a project, we look at that project as being a $5 million project. Steve looks at it as you're going to spend $1 million this year, $1 million in next year, or $3 million next year, and then $2 million the following year. So this has been tweaked, retweaked, and re-retweaked. We have tried to show our projects to reflect more of a cash flow basis rather than a project basis, the way, frankly, we would prefer to do it. But I understand the problems that Steve's got, because what happens is every year we look like we're going to spend $15 million and we spend $8.
Right. That was my one of my big broad questions. I've never seen a budget that was so off.
Exactly, because because what we said is, this was a $5 million project, but we knew we'd only spend $1 million the first year. So to resolve that issue, we have tried to this budget year and future years spread that cost out over a more realistic time frame, so that we are much closer, but still give us the flexibility, because a lot of times we'll have a project that will slip a year because of easements and funding and other issues. Home Street's a perfect example. That project has slipped for 3 years because of grant issues. Hopefully we'll get that thing bid real soon, but so it's been a little struggle for us trying to look at it from a cash flow basis as opposed to a project basis. So we've done the best we can this year. We'll see how it works, and we'll tweak it again next year if we need to. It's the best I can say. But like I say, I don't have any specific issues to address here, but I'm willing to answer any questions anybody's got. Repair projects, let me back it. Repair projects are essentially repairing the infrastructure we have in place that is reaching the end or has exceeded the end of its useful life. The consent judgment projects are driven by either the long-term control plan or elimination of sanitary sewer overflows. The expansion projects, which we don't have a whole lot of, we've got a lot identified, are projects where we're expanding our service area. And again, the one thing that I like to stress with folks, I've only got 2 ways to increase my revenue. I can increase my rates, or I can increase my customer base. The only way I can increase my revenue. So we're looking anywhere we can to try to increase at a reasonable cost our customer base, to spread our fixed cost over the maximum number of customers we've got. So with that, I will entertain any questions on the next 4 or 5 pages.
At some point, I don't want to take it time now. Can you guys just send me an update on what we're doing, like with the Indian Hills project, before I start getting in public for everybody, before we start getting calls?
I will do that. I knew you had some kind of purpose, Steve. I just didn't know what it was.
You got many purposes, Steve.
Not according to sewer, he doesn't.
We might tell everybody that under the consent judgment, the amount of money, the total amount of money that you could spend if we would just give you the green light to do it would be astronomical, and you can't, even if we approved it all, we can't do that many projects.
Right. I mean, I've got limited ability to get projects done, but ultimately we're going to spend $75, $80 to $100 million when all this is said and done.
I said that was important for them to hear, because there's a lot of projects you want to do, but in order to do them all, we would have to quadruple or even quintuple the staff just to keep up.
And frankly, that doesn't make sense.
Everybody would leave Frankfort because the rates would be so high they'd move.
Right.
And with
City manager, I could explain how much is grant driven.
We've actually been very fortunate. We've gotten probably $4 or $5 million in grants over the last few years, either through the legislature. We got one EPA grant. We've gotten several grants for Home Street to do some stormwater work down there, which again helps me out because it takes that stormwater out of my combined system and takes it straight to the river. And again, all the stormwater that stays out of my system is stormwater I don't have to pump and treat.
Yeah. And with that, my question is, obviously we want to get the stormwater out of our systems so that we don't have to pump and treat it, clean it, whatever. We are on the right track doing this throughout the community, aren't we?
Correct.
And with this and this budget in mind, this budget's on that track.
Yes.
And the other thing is, where does the stormwater utility fee come in if it happens regarding revenues? Does that help with revenues, or does it just help you cover the cost?
Well, ideally, if the stormwater utility fee is instigated, what it would do is projects like Louisville Hill, which actually was a stormwater project that we did to take that stormwater out of the combined sewer, would then be funded by that stormwater fee. The Crestwood project would be funded by that stormwater,
So
the stormwater work in Crestwood.
Utility fee helps fund stormwater.
So it would fund certain aspects of O&M in stormwater. It would fund certain aspects of the permit in stormwater, because there's a cost for the permit. I mean, I've got a cost just to keep my permit every year. And then it would fund primarily, I think the biggest advantage of it is to fund the projects that are needed in support of stormwater issues throughout the community.
So would it in turn have its own budget?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be a, if it were in my department, it would be a 500 account that would be
Okay.
projects that was
Okay.
identified to do specific stormwater projects.
Any other?
Thank you for that clarification.
Any others? Commissioner Roach.
I think you answered one of my questions, and I've got a statement or two, and then maybe a follow-up to that, and that is, you know, I'm nervous about a budget that asks for $15 million under the 300 account in 2012-2013 and spends $6,914,000. That's such a discrepancy, and so I'm thankful that that's going to be tighter. I'm not comfortable with anybody's ability, and I understand basically that you've got, let's say for example, we say you're going to spend $12,160,000, give or take $100,000. I can't remember off that last page for 2013. But I'm uncomfortable in the fact that we don't have any. I realize you can't have a hard and fast budget category, but we don't seem to have. You seem to have an awful lot of flexibility within that $12,160,000 to spend it wherever. So I'm nervous about the lack of incentives to lower the cost from $12,160,000. In other words, if you have a certain amount budgeted and one category you don't spend but 30, and you've asked for 80 in that category because you spent 50 somewhere else, I just don't see the incentives in place to lower costs.
Steve, have you got any? I mean, I'm not sure how that.
It may not be an answer.
I understand what your concern is, but I don't know the answer to that.
Let me ask you this: How do you control your specific contractors to try to get them to come in under budget, or what?
I mean, for our projects, we bid them, and it's the low bid.
I think as a part of that, though, because of the project, if they hit a snag and it drags that particular project out, that it can't, then we can't get on to the next one, and so some of that could be
And like I say, we've always got easement issues that we have to deal with that take longer than we anticipate.
And property owners.
But if you look throughout this budget, it's more than just the whatever project. We're all over the map on what we spent and what we asked for. So but I think we're not all over the map on the total that you were set forth to spend. Is that accurate?
Yeah. What he's trying to do in this budget process right now is he's trying to hit his total number, cost number, and and he's got I reckon he's got the flexibility between projects to waiver between projects, whatever's.
And categories, because they're not necessarily projects. There's
in his categories too.
Well,
but
everything in the 54,390 is all project.
Right, but the other,
the other stuff is not.
It's the same difference, though. In other words, there's a lot of discrepancy in both of them, as far as what you asked for and what you spent last year.
Let me ask you what.
Not as much as the projects, but there is some.
No, it's not. You're right. It's not as high, but it's pretty high. But it's not anywhere near what this is. That's right.
When you do contracts with, time is money.
Right.
So when you do contracts, do we have any incentives in those contracts to try to get, if a firm comes in under the time schedule or less than time schedule, is there any incentives built into the contracts to push to try to do cost reduction through that with these contracts?
We did that on one project. And basically what happened is the contractor met the contract date and didn't get an extra nickel. And I'm not saying we can't do it again. But the problem is if you're doing a project where you've got a major road closed for, and Louisville Hill's a perfect example, where we closed that for 10 or we could have closed that for 10 weeks. We could have put an incentive in there for the contractor for every week he went under the 10 weeks to get done. Now, the problem you have when you do that is you've got to make sure that the contractor doesn't cut corners and give you an inferior product. But even without that, which that was not a project we did, the contractor was out there in about 7.5 weeks. Most contractors, frankly, recognize time is money. And they want to get in and get out as soon as they can. What drives the issue is when they get in, and because so many of our projects are buried, until you dig that first spade of dirt, you really don't know what you got. I mean, that's all the issues that was associated with that change order today, was unknowns that we didn't know until we started doing the project. And, you can spend as much on engineering as you want, but you're never going to get all those answers. So it's a balance of doing the right amount of engineering so that you hope you get at least a decent bid without over-engineering it and wasting money.
If I may too interject, I think to help address your question, Commissioner Roach, if you look to the very last page and you look at the replacement capital about the middle of that table. Yes,
sir.
Replacement capital. Initially, when we were working with Mr. Scal's budget, year 2, year 3, year 4 were more in that 15, 16, 17, $18 million range. We've asked him, Steve and I, to try and better allocate what the actuals will be.
And I think that's going to help my question, and I appreciate that.
Okay. We're going to work with big numbers, and we need a lot of flexibility because of the magnitude of the projects and timing and so on and so forth.
So do we feel pretty good then about the 5-year projection on those projects? Since the 1 year we know it's going to be kind of iffy, but do we feel pretty good about the 5 years, which is the $47,350,000?
The only problem I've got with the 5-year projection is it's very difficult for me to use my crystal ball to see what year 3, 4, and 5 look like.
And they may end up being year 6, 7, and 8.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is a tough animal because we don't, we're spending all this money and we still haven't even got our finalized thing yet.
We still don't have a long approved
That's what I
long-term
mean.
control
So this
plan.
whole thing makes me nervous.
Well, most of the money we're spending today is sanitary sewer overflow
Gotta
drilling,
do it
not
anyway.
combined sewer.
Yeah.
We're doing a couple small combined sewer projects that just make sense. You know, and the Division of Water is not going to not approve them, but it just makes sense for us to do a few of them. And we're going and proceeding with those, like Louisville Hill. Louisville Hill was actually part of our long-term control plan, but it made sense for us to get that flow off of our pump station, so we went ahead and did the project. So we're doing very few CSO projects right now.
Any others?
So bond, on the bottom of that page?
Yes.
On the bond payment, I assume that's balloons on year 5, the 4 million, the 6 million, and the 5 million on the bottom of 8 of 12? Is that the balloon payment?
No, what that is, you're talking about the 442,000?
Oh, that's the total, my fault. Scratch that.
Oh, okay.
Forget it. Bad question.
Oh, okay. But basically, the pages 9 through 12 are just summaries of the first 8 pages. Again, if there's any specific questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, but I think those are pretty self-explanatory. It's just a summary of those.
What are the scheduled rate increases / additional bonds, etc., over the next 5 years? I realize they're flexible.
Hold that question.
Okay.
We'll talk about it in just a minute.
All right.
Any other 300 questions? And again, you know, if you all have questions after the fact, feel free to send me an email, call. Don't just drop by because I may not be there, but if you want to stop by, call me and I'll be glad to sit down with you and go over line by line if you'd like. Happy to do it. Next account is 400. That's our lateral account. Again, it's one of those that we frankly should be a lot more aggressive in. If you where's my page 1? I don't have a page 1.
We do. It's the one with the big number on it.
Yeah, yeah, give him.
Oh well, I don't have a page 1. You'll notice this year we were proposing to spend 125. We're going to spend about 85. We do intend to ramp this up next year and getting more into addressing the private property side and the lateral issue. Again, the industry standard is if you don't address the private property side, you will not be successful in removing the I&I from your projects or from your system. You just can't do it. And so that will slowly be ramping up in future years. But there's a lot of documentation that basically says that's got to happen.
Does everybody know what I&I is?
Inflow infiltration.
I was just
Yes.
going to say they might not.
Yeah. Any of those acronyms, ask if you don't understand.
So can you effectively spend $275,000 in this area?
Yes. It'll all
So we
be
have
done through
that plan,
contract.
and we have that planned.
Yes. Well, we're
'Cause it's
working
a whole
on that
lot,
plan.
85 to 275. Even what you said, that's a big jump.
If you remember, there was a contract approved with Hatchmont McDonald earlier. That's this
That's
program.
part of this. Okay.
Yes. They will help us.
They're going to help us get the private people to do what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes, exactly. They will help us spend that money.
That would be a very controversial
It's,
time.
oh my goodness, yes.
It's gonna be an interesting program. Like I said, we've got to figure out how we're going to do it and how we roll it out. And I'll be a very popular man in Frankfort for a long time.
I think they'll be more likely looking at us.
Yeah, they
but
will.
you just go right on.
Yeah, but I'll be the guy that's doing it anyway. If you go to the last, which is background, you will notice it says bond issuance number 1 in year 4, 15 million. That's when we anticipate the next major bond issuance. But basically, this is a 5-year summary of what we believe is our best projection of where we're going and how we're going to pay for it. And I know nothing about this page, so I'll refer all questions to Steve.
This is just the cash flow page is what it
Yeah.
is. We just projected our cash flows for the next 5 years. And we'll be working more with our bonding company to refine this.
In answer to your question, Commissioner Roach, we've got a CPI coming up July 1. There is a 7.5 that's currently scheduled in January of 14. Probably July or August, Steve and I will sit down with our bond folks and look at that and see where we need to go. But frankly, with our current cash in hand and our cash flow, I can see that being pushed again, just like we did the last time. Don't know that for certain, but I would envision that would be a strong probability.
Well, I guess Steve could say, just so everybody knows, these numbers are just for the day that these were pulled off. These numbers change.
Oh, hourly.
Yeah. We've been reviewing, once
So,
a year pretty much.
I just wanted to let everybody know that,
cash
so
flows.
if somebody checks next, I mean, these are always changing.
Yes. Yes, this was done, well, obviously that cash was as of the end of last fiscal year. The projections are based upon, what I did is the first budget I prepared was based upon our February financials. This is based upon our March financials. Come April, I'm sure there's numbers in here I'll want to change.
Steve, I may not be reading it right, which on year 5, why is the ending cash so low? Looks like it should be higher.
Yeah, no,
than
it looks
that.
like it should be more since we issued that. We issued that $15 million.
I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't think we added receipts with the beginning cash. I think.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. You're right. That formula's wrong there.
It should be
That
actually.
18 million looks like it's not added into that.
That's what I thought. So it should be 27 million, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
All right, and so is this? This is based on doing another bond in 2015, 2016, correct?
Right.
All right, and this is based on the 2.5% COLA per or more per year, correct?
Right, the CPI.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
sir.
used the 2% just conservatively.
I saw that. Yes, sir. And this is based on the 7.5% increase in January 14, or not?
I don't believe so, but no.
So all things being equal,
We didn't put that in there.
with that kind of an ending cash balance in 2016, 2017, the likelihood of maybe needing that may not be.
Right, that's what I'm
Just
saying.
as you say it.
I think there's a strong probability that will not need to happen in that time frame.
Because that would leave us with an ending cash of pretty good balance, 2016, 2017.
Right.
Okay.
18 up. Yeah, 28 million.
So it's a bunch more, right?
Yeah, it's about 28 million looks like.
Okay.
In cash.
Bill, explain to me, this is, I think, my last question, believe it or not. Explain to me the rationale, I think I've got it, but the rationale for why we have a CPI adjustment, and then what would be the argument against having it?
The rationale when it was presented in 05 was with doing an annual small CPI, it prevents you from having to go in and do a 6, 7, 8, 10% on a regular basis. Those were built in as part of that, I guess probably more as insurance. But I think the rationale has played out because, you know, in 2010, we had a 15% that was scheduled in that we were able to eliminate because of the CPI. I shouldn't say because of the CPI helped to support why we did not have to do the one in 2010. We had one in 2012 that was a 15%. that was deferred and split in half to 14 and 16. So what you're doing is, yes, you're increasing every year by a small amount. You're keeping up, quote unquote, with inflation, but you're not having to go in and hit the public with a large, I say, 8, 10, 12, 15% rate increase.
What would be the con to it?
The con is somewhere, and I don't know if this is truly a con, somewhere down the road, and I don't know when that is, I would say could very well be within the next 3 to 5 years, we need to do an internal look and possibly readjust our rates. Because I recognize...
That's where I'm going.
I recognize I can't continue to go up 2.5, 2.5, 2.5 forever. I know that. And I accept that. But I would much rather every 3 to 5 years look at it and say, hey, we need to adjust down and then continue to go back up and then adjust, as opposed to, because what happened is when I came here, we had not had a rate increase since 1992. We were so far behind the curve it wasn't funny. I had no money to spend on capital projects. It took me several years to be able to start spending money on capital projects. I don't ever want to get in that condition again. So I would much rather keep it where it's at, periodically every 3 to 5 years, bring it back to reality, and then increase it, because the downside is, from my perspective, and I hope this never happens again, but if we go back to the 70s and we've got 18, 20% inflation, I'm capped at 9. Actually, I think 9.9.
9.9.
So if we have 2 or 3 years of that, I'm digging myself back into a hole. I say, I hope that never happens again.
But your minimum's 2.5.
2.5.
In fact, inflation's going to be lower than that.
Actually, was it last year? It was 3.2.
Yeah, I'm talking about this year.
This year it is 2.1.
Correct.
Per the Department of Labor.
Any other questions? One thing I want to point out, as Bill said, 1992 was the first year that the city actually had an opportunity to do the city budget with the sewers. Up to that point, I guess it was 1991.
91 is when the board was dissolved.
The city of Frankfort dissolved the sewer board, which was a separate board, and the city of Frankfort took over the operation, maintenance, everything on the sewers. So the first opportunity that the city of Frankfort had to start addressing the long-term needs and short-term needs of the sewer department was 1992.
Right.
At that time, it was immediately recognized by the city that there were a lot of areas that needed to be upgraded and that rates had not been adjusted, as Bill said. So when the city took over the sewer department, the city immediately took responsibility for the long-range planning and goals of that department.
Yeah, but we didn't increase rates in the 90s.
They did increase rates.
In 92 we increased
Yeah,
rates.
but any time else between 92 and 2003?
We did some rates.
I think there was one other one in 93 or
Yeah.
94, but that's
They
it.
went a long time without.
Yeah, we went a long
correct.
time with no
Okay.
increase.
Because they had to jump in, and some of those rate increases were controversial, but the city had no choice at that time. All right, is there anything else on the sewers? If not,
And again, if anybody has questions, feel free to call me. Come down and visit me.
thank you.
Approve it, or is it?
Oh, no, we won't approve it yet.
The whole budget.
So this- But I mean, first of all, I guess that would be the question: does anyone feel like we need to make any? Now that it's been presented, do commissioners feel like you want to make any changes to the budget, or is it you feel like it's okay the way it is, ready for approval? At which time we would schedule that with the regular. I mean, we could go on and approve it at a meeting if you're ready to, and just take it.
Well, we have to have 2 readings,
We have
right?
to do
Right.
2 readings
One,
anyway.
one could be now, and the second could be when we do the whole budget.
The only thing, if I could, that I would like to do is I'd like to see the April financials
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a
before I
little early.
before any final numbers are set on.
But I'll just make, as Tim said, if there's any major issues that the commissioners have. Because if there's a majority of the commissioners, we can change, or we can rewrite it if you want. If somebody wants to go to that level, we certainly have that opportunity if you feel like it's something you want to get into. Or say, like, we appreciate all the hard work. We know you've done your best to keep expenditures low.
We're trying.
Bring in more receipts. And you can digest it and look at it. And if you go back through here and you find something, we've still got plenty of time. So when the budget, where's the schedule on that?
Obviously, I guess the first reading will be the 20th of May for the
Whatever
budget
gets
and
April.
the adoption in June.
So
I've only got one thing. I'd like to have a discussion on the CPI thing, cost of living. I think Bill did a great job of saying what the pros are. The only con I see, and I think it's a big one for me, is I would rather it be part of the budget process annually, and so that there's more. There's not a built-in 2.5 or whatever, that we really look at what our costs are and we either raise it that percentage based on your budget analysis, or we keep it the same, or we actually would lower it, because I'm worried about what you're worried about. Let's say you're not sitting there in 3 to 5 years, you've retired or whatever, or gotten a $500,000 a year job somewhere.
Got hit by that bus.
Got hit by that bus or whatever. You know, that they may not be as vigilant, and I'm afraid this type of language locks you in to not having enough incentive to save. But that's just my viewpoint.
The only problem I would have with making it part of the budget process is that would mean it would not be finalized until the budget was approved. And frankly, we've got to give our billing entities more notice than that.
You could have that portion approved, though, couldn't you?
I mean, I'm just
Because
saying.
you're already doing this CPI thing anyway. You
Right.
could just do this piece of it at the same time you would be doing this.
But they would have to. We would have to tell them what that percentage is, because that's got to be programmed into their billing. In fact, I've been kind of holding off on this until this meeting, but typically in April is when the letter goes out to the plant board and Farmdale Sewer, telling them what the CPI, so they have plenty of time to do their reprogramming, because it is a programming issue for them with their billing. But the city manager signs the plant board letter that goes and requests that increase.
So you're saying in practical terms, it's perhaps too late.
That the approval of the budget would be too late. They would not have
So
time.
you're saying in terms of practical terms, to get rid of it now, it would be too late.
Yes, for this year. But if you make it part of the actual budget process, if the budget's approved in June, that's too late to notify the billing entities and have it effective July 1st. You would probably have to change the effective date of the rate increase every year.
Fall. I got it. Thank you.
any other questions? Not, are you all ready for a motion for adjournment? So moved by Commissioner Haynes, seconded by Commissioner
Oh, second.
Bowers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed can stay. Like sign.
Hey, Steve.
We are.